Hello, guys. Good afternoon. My name is Richard, and today we're going to be deploying uh, Elastic Kubernetes Services using Terraform. Okay, and so this is my AWS console, my AWS portal. So I'm just going to go into the Kubernetes dashboard so we can see at this point in time in this environment, we don't have any Kubernetes at all, any cluster deployed. So you can see we have zero deployments. Let me click on the cluster. We have zero. There's no cluster in this environment right now. And let me switch over to this Oregon. So because that is the region we're going to be using for our deployments. Okay, so at this point in time, we don't have any deployments. So we want to use Terraform to automate the deployments. Okay, so I'm just going to switch over to my Visual Studio Code where I already have my files, my Terraform configurations. So I have this directory called the EKS deployment, and I'm just going to open that here. So I'm going to run a tree so you can really see the EKS deployment pretty well to see the file structure. So now you can see at the, at the top root, we have my environments, which references the dev environment, production environment, and the test environment. We're going to go through this file as well. And I also have my main.tf, which from which I can pull all my modules. My modules comprise of the EKS modules and the VPC. So under the EKS module, we have the main.tf, the output.tf, and also we have a test for it. And in the previous video, I actually showed how we did the test and to test your modules, right? For both the EKS and for the VPCs. And also we have variables of TF. So the same thing applies for the Hoja module, which is the VPC, okay? And then we have a provider and then we have our outputs on the top level. So to control our states, we have the remote backend, right? And so we're just going to go through the main couple of files. We're not going to go through everything, but we're just going to go through the main one because we don't have a lot of time. So just to summary, we have 6 directories and 18 files. Okay, now I'm just going to take this down a little bit and to the let's go to the module first. I'm just going to go into the module. Now let's review what we'll have for EKS. So I'm going to go through the main module for the EKS. So for the EKS, the first thing we did was to create a role, an IAM role, and we call the IAM role the EKS cluster. If you are familiar with deploying resources on AWS, you know you have to create a role and then assign a policy to that role in order for you to have access to that resource and carry out deployments. So that's what we did here. We created a role and then we created a role here and then we came over here to create the policy attachment, okay, for that role itself for the cluster role, which is what we created at the top here. And then we proceeded to creating using Terraform to create the resource, which is the EKS cluster, right? And then we use variables for the cluster name. Okay, and this cluster depends on the role and the policy attachment, right? Once the role is created and the policy has been assigned to that role, we can go ahead, Terraform go ahead to start provisioning the creating the cluster and then proceed to provisioning that cluster. And this is our tagging. Okay, so we also have rule for the node groups as well, and we also have the same policy attachment for the node group. But this time around, we're attaching more than just one policy. We attach the EKS working node policy, the EKS network, yeah, the CNI policy for networking, and also we have the Amazon EC2 container registry with only policy assigned to the role. Okay. So we also went ahead to create the resource for the node group, right? And yep. So I'm just gonna go over to the outputs. We're just gonna run through the output and then we go over. So basically, this is our outputs, and we just need a couple of calls: the cluster name, the cluster endpoint, the cluster ARN, and the node group ARN, and the node group name. And so this is our test. We on the previous video we did the test before. And we also have a variable name. So this is the our variables. These are all the variables we'll be needing for the creation of the EKS cluster, right? These are all the variables of the EKS. So I set some variables as default, just in case you couldn't provide any values in your TVAR or on your CLI. So those values will set in, right? And I'm going to go over to the the VPC module right now. So I'm just going to main and the same thing for the for VPC. This is the VPC resource and EKS VPC. So we use a variable interpolation, variable names, you know, so we use for the tagging variable interpolations. And we set the DNS hostname to true, the DNS support to true as well. We created public subnets and private subnets, and you know, so we also created the internet gateway, right? The internet gateway we created, we the internet gateway is for the public subnets, and then we have the NAT gateway, which is uh associated with the private subnets. Okay. And then we created the EIP Elastic IP address for NATs, and we have route tables, we have route table associations. Okay, so all these are all the resources we have for VPC. And also let's check the outputs as well. So we have the private subnet, the public subnet, and then the VPC ID in your output. And then we have the test for it as well. So this is the test, and then these are variables. Okay. And so we're just gonna move over to the main.tf, which we use for to source the modules, right? So this is the top level main.tf. So for the top level main.tf, we just have the module which calls the VPC and the module for the EKS cluster. So you can see that the source is actually the module plus VPC. Okay, and then the source for the EKS is the module plus EKS. Okay, so we're using modularization Terraform module to build this up. Okay, um, so we have a lot of stuff here. So what else are we going to check again? The remote backend. So the remote backend, we're just going to check the remote backend. We have a provider, our X3, and also we have DynamoDB to add as our backend. All right. So we have a DynamoDB table as our backend. Mm, okay. So this is what we currently have right now. And so we'll just go ahead to see to start the deployments. We just want to save a lot of time, so we're going to start the deployments. So I'm using free. My AWS account is actually a free account, right? I'm using the free tier. So I want to deploy. I'm kind of like conscious of what I'm deploying. So I want to deploy. So currently I have 196. So I've used some of the money there, some of the credit there actually, and I've done some of the activities to get extra credits. So I'm using this. I just need to state it because I'm not using like company's accounts or anything. So I'm using this. So I want to deploy a a dev instance, not a production instance. So I'm going to deploy this. I'm going to deploy my dev instance. You will just go through the various instances. So basically, we have for our dev instance, the name is going to be this, indicating that it's actually a dev instance, and we're going to be using this desired capacity. So desired capacity is going to be one node, and also we have the maximum size is one, the minimum size is one. So and we're using T3 small, and then for our prod, we also our prod is going to be our prod is also going to be um we're going to be using a desired capacity of 5. The maximum size is 10, and also the minimum size is 2. And the instance type are actually production grade instance size, which has C6A large and C6I large. Okay, and it's going to be on demand as well. And then for the test, we're going to have one desired capacity, two maximum size, and then one minimum size. The same with the dev environment, T3 micro, and its on demand. Okay, so I'm going to be deploying the dev environment because I don't want to consume a lot of credits from the Kubernetes deployment. I just want to use this as well. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to clear my terminal so I can have some real estate where I can see what I'm doing pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to clear this right now, and then I'll say Terraform init already initialized, but I just want to initialize this again for this walkthrough sake. So I'm just going to go and then initialize. It's going to take a couple of time, and then it's going to pick from the previous state that we already initialized before. Okay, awesome. So Terraform has been successfully initialized. Awesome, that's good. So I'm gonna clear this right now, and then I'm gonna do Terraform plan. I'm gonna do Terraform plan, but this time around I'm gonna pass the file. Okay, I'm gonna pass the file, and what I want to use is environment/dev dot cvars. Okay, all right. Oh, there's no mistake here. Okay, so let me just click on this and see what's gonna happen. So we're picking this up. It's from environments. All right. So let's see what our plan is going to look like. Okay. I'm going to take this up right now because it's currently going through the deployment and it's telling, okay, these are all the things that we're going to do. It's going to add 25 resources. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to destroy anything. So you can go ahead and review all the resources that we want to deploy. Okay. So right now I'm just going to go ahead to deploy these, right? And I'm going to clear the screen now, and I'll go ahead to deploy it, and I'm going to apply my, okay. So I'm just going to say apply. Okay. So this is going to apply the configuration for my dev environment to my Terraform configs in creating the Terraform EKS cluster. Okay. So I'm going to say yes. All right. So this is going to take a couple of, going to take some time. This is going to take some time to go ahead to start the deployment. It's already creating some resources, but before that we get done, I might have to wait a little bit for it to get done. Okay, so it's creating all of these resources, and why it's still creating, we haven't gotten to the EKS yet. For now, it's creating the networking resources. You can see it has already created the public subnets, created the routing table, and it has done the association. Now it's creating the gateway, the NAT gateway. Right, it's still creating a NAT gateway. And okay. So at the same time, it's also creating the cluster. Okay. But yeah, it's creating the VPC resources and creating the cluster as well. But there's a dependency between the VPC resource, so they have to also wait the EKS has to wait for some of the depend zone to get completed before that would continue. Okay, so once this gets completed, the EKS cluster will eventually start deployment, and we'll just go over to the AWS Management Console to see that. So let me just go check if we will see any sign of deployment for the EKS already. Let me just check so we can see something like creating. I'm just going to go into cluster. Okay, you can see that's creating right now. All right. And it started 2 minutes ago. All right. So it's still in creating stage. So you won't be able to do anything unless it's done creating. And you can see we're creating for our dev environment. Okay. So what we have right now is Richard EKS cluster for our dev environment. So I'm just gonna wait a couple of minutes and wait for it to get done. So this is actually like a minimalist EKS because I'm using one desired state, one minimum, no one maximum. So it's just going to deploy one node in the whole cluster. So it's not going to take much of time like that. But I'm just going to head to pause this for a while and come back when the deployment is done. Okay. Yeah. So after about 3 minutes, or about 4 minutes, close to 4 minutes, yeah, we're able to successfully deploy the AKS cluster and the VPC and all the resources. So you can see the creation completed after 34, sorry, 3 minutes 59 seconds. That's about 4 minutes, right? And you can see that we successfully created 25 resources and none changed, none destroyed. So these are all the outputs we have, right? So these are all the outputs we currently have here. And you can see this is the endpoint we declared in our output files. So this is the name, which has a case the cluster dev, and these are the roles, the node groups, and these are this private subnet and the public subnet and the VPC ID. So we can now go and we can go over to the AWS Management Console to confirm. So I'm just going to refresh this right now. Let me click on here to refresh so we can get a new state. And you can see right now it's currently showing active. So I'm just going to click into it and we can see what we have here. So the cluster is healthy and this is you can click on the resources to see the nodes and we can go into the compute to see. So this is our node group, right? It's our dev node group. And I'm going to click, we're supposed to see just one dev, one here. And I'm going to click the node. And you can see that we're also using the T3 small that was allocated for, assigned for both test and dev environment. And we can see we have just one here. Okay, so we have just um, one node here. All right, awesome. So let's just go over to the VPC aspect as well to see what we have in the VPC uh for our VPC creation. So I'm just gonna go over to VPC. So just loading. Okay. Now I'm gonna click into the VPC to see. Okay, you can see that we also have our VPC here created, which has clustered the VPC. Okay, so I'm just gonna click into it. And so basically, so this whole we did, right? So this is our connection. So we have the uh, public and private subnets. So these are the routes table, connect the connection to our internet gateway and a NAT gateway. Okay. So I think we're done with our deployments, right? We're done with our deployments, and we have done a very good work. Maybe we could just go ahead to try to connect to uh let's see if we can connect to our cluster, right? I'm just gonna see if we can connect to our cluster, and I'm going to try to get the I'm gonna get the name for what they call the name for our Kubernetes cluster so we can let me open a notepad. Yeah, because I need to write open a notepad so I could just so that's the command that we use to connect to my cluster. So this is my cluster name, and is the region is Oregon, which is US is 2. Okay, so I'm gonna put just create this command, and I'm gonna put US West 2. Okay, this is US West 2, and I'm just gonna copy this and I'll go over to I'm gonna clear this up first. I hope that I have the CLI, just paste these. So AWS. All right, so let's see if we'll be able to connect to the cluster. Okay. All right. So so right now we have been able to connect to the cluster, and you can see, yes, I'm gonna use a kubectl to do um get nodes. So we can see it's gonna give us one node. All right. So we can see that we're already connected to the cluster. And if you copy this, right? If you copy this, it's going to show you that this is the node we have. And I'm just going to do control. All right, we won't be able to see that here. I think so. So I'm just going to do control F and then paste that here. And you can see this is the cluster that we created. Awesome. So what we've been able to do so far, we've been able to use Terraform to automate the provisioning of our clusters, right? Yeah, our EKS clusters. And we also, not just the EKS cluster, we were able to build the networking foundation, which comprises of the VPC, comprises of the subnets and the private and the public subnet, the internet gateway, the routing table, and all of those connections that were needed, right, to create the needed for as a foundation for the EKS. And more importantly, for the EKS itself, we're able to create roles and then attach the policies, definition. We're able to create the clusters and also create the nodes using Terraform. And we're able to create the Terraform files for both the dev, deploy, and the test environment, and we modularize everything. Okay, and so we're able to apply best practices in the process of automating the deployment of EKS using Terraform. Awesome. So in the next video, what we're going to be doing is actually deploying Kubernetes resources to this EKS, right? Um, so we have a lot of services, it's a lot of services and different various manifest files that will come together to build to form a large whole, and then we deploy the application into the EKS cluster. But for now, I'm just going ahead to delete this because I don't really need it. I'll go ahead to delete this from pending when I'll be done writing those manifest files, then I'll deploy it later on and continue our process, right? So thank you for your time. I truly appreciate. Thanks for staying to the end and for successfully, congratulations to us for successfully deploying this using Terraform. Awesome, without experiencing any problem, right? All right, until later, do have a wonderful day. Bye.